How's it going, doggy people? I hope you all are doing well. Today I'm going to be answering some questions that I received a few days ago. So for anybody who has asked these questions, I'm sorry it's taken a little while. I've been a little bit busy, but I definitely wanted to get these questions answered. So feel free to use this as a podcast for today if you want. For this video, I'm just going to be answering these questions. Nothing too fancy to see here. So let's get started. So first we have a question from Jrod, who says, appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much, Jrod. I appreciate your comment and your question. Jrod says, I have a pit who is dog and human friendly. Terrific. However, he is hyper aware of his surroundings the minute he goes outside, especially when he sees other dogs. He fixates on everything outside and it's difficult to get his attention during training. He will seldom hold and give eye contact. He will perform commands and take treats, but only when maintaining attention elsewhere, which is a pretty common behavior that I see when working with dogs who are just really overstimulated being outside. This is magnified with other dogs, so again, pretty normal, or pretty common, I should say, not necessarily normal. Indoors, I can maintain engagement and eye contact. Terrific. How do I transfer this engagement outdoors if he's immediately over threshold upon exiting the home? So very, very good question. Keep doing what you're doing, really getting that great engagement of eye contact inside the home so that way you really build that behavior. And then instead of just going outside the home, since you know that he's over threshold, which is awesome that you're already aware that he is over threshold, we can work with that. So try just opening the door. You're still working inside, but you have the door open. He's able to see the outside world, but he's not quite over threshold enough to be in that stimulating environment. He may be able to smell the outside. Of course, he'll be able to smell the outside smells, as they're coming through the door. Terrific. Work on that eye contact. Work on being able to ask for certain behaviors, sit down, stay, whatever. Just simple behaviors with the door open. See if that will help. And then maybe you can even try having a friend or somebody walk by, or if somebody naturally walks by, then terrific. If they're walking by the house across the street, then that should be hopefully enough to keep your dog under threshold. If your dog starts to get excited, which sounds like it's just, as this dog is claimed to be, human and dog friendly, they're just excited. I don't know how old this puppy is or this dog, or if they are a puppy or not, unless I just missed that in the comment. But so that can have a lot to do with it, that they're just excitable. Even an old dog can be very excited too. So it's not, the end of the world if they're a puppy. They may or may not grow out of it, but either way, we can train it out of them. So start with that door open. Reward them, for just being able to look outside. Let them look. When I work with a dog who is distracted by things, I like to allow them to look out or look at whatever the trigger is or stimulation is, and I give them a couple of seconds to see and test them to see if they're going to be able to look at me and break that attention. If after about 4 or 5 seconds they're still staring, then I'll make a little noise, like a kissy noise or a clicky noise, or call their name or something, just to remind them and say, hey, I'm still here, and kind of test and see if I can get their attention. When I do that, if they look at me, terrific. Reward, then let them go back to looking for a couple seconds, and then test it again and give them some time to remember, oh yeah, my human's here, and they can do that, and you can reinforce that. If you have to continuously get their attention, then we're a little bit over threshold. Not too bad, but maybe we can move back a few steps, like literally and figuratively. Increase that distance, or go back to the environment where they were able to watch you, but just increase that, up the ante a little bit, such as opening the door. If you can do that and they're able to look at the outside world and they check in with you automatically, terrific. Always reward the heck out of that. Give them really good rewards. Whatever the dog finds to be most rewarding, usually treats are number one, because every animal needs food. But you can also use toys for your dog. If you have like a tug toy or something, and they're really excitable and they want to go say hi to someone, and then that excitement can turn to frustration because they can't say hello to everybody they meet, which is totally fine. In fact, it's good to teach your dog that you can't say hi to everyone you meet, but instead you can take out this energy on a tug toy, or really focus on me, and we'll do some fun stuff. Then you can try stepping just outside the door. When you have your dog able to look at you with the door open, terrific. Step outside, just stand there on your porch or patio, whatever it is. Whether you have a fence in front of you or not, just practice there. I always tell all my clients that if it looks like you're doing nothing at all, then you're doing it right. As you seem to be very well aware, Jrod, when your dog is over threshold, terrific. So keep that in mind. Whenever your dog is able to, the second that they're not able to, look at you if you have a treat right in front of their nose, or you make a kissy noise, you call their name or show them their favorite toy, then obviously they're over threshold. So still give them some time to take in the information, but don't give them long enough time to build up frustration towards it, or go over threshold and start to act out against it, whether out of play or fear or frustration. So work lots of little steps. First inside with the door open, then outside, just outside the front door, then maybe a couple feet further outside the door, and then in the front yard, a little bit closer and closer to the sidewalk. On your walks, try your best to control the environment as much as you can if you go for daily walks, which I always recommend doing, but it's easier said than done when you have a dog who is reactive, whether out of, again, fear, frustration, a negative association of people, or just really, really friendly and the dog wants to say hi. We don't want to reinforce that behavior if we can. If we can prevent it, that's the key. Because if you reinforce it just once, it's going to take that much longer to, make that behavior go extinct, or reinforce or counter condition that behavior to another one. But it's not the end of the world. Training with the dog is for the life of the dog. It's it's management. That's why my company's name is Taste Canine Management. So I hope that helps, Jrod. Let me know if you still have questions. But I would say just work slow, keep doing what you're doing, and just work really, really slow at increasing, or I guess decreasing the distance between you and whatever the stimulation is or whatever the trigger is. And just, have fun with it. Make sure that you and your dog have fun, of course. Okay, the next question is from Bruce, France. I have a 5-month-old Rottweiler, so a very young puppy. To me, 5 months is still a very young dog. And when she gets stressed, she can be reactive towards me on a walk. I currently use a martingale collar, and she walks good most of the time, but has episodes when she goes nuts and lunges at me. What should I do? So we have a young dog, we have a Rottweiler, we have a young, powerful, energetic dog. Awesome, beautiful breed, love it. So we have to be aware of that. So when she becomes reactive towards her on the walks, we have to kind of question that. Okay, is it out of frustration that she can't go? Is she super friendly? Does she want to say hello to another dog? Being a young dog, she's socializing and she wants to say hello. She can't because of the leash, so she becomes frustrated and she takes it out on the owner or the leash, which is holding her back. Is she fearful? Is she going into the fear imprint stage, for the second time in her life? Coming up to that point, I believe between 6 and 9 months. I could be wrong, but dogs, just like people, when they start becoming adolescents, we get older, we go through a couple of stages of fear that we are getting used to new things in our environment. So is that it? Is it that she's had a negative association with something else? There's a million questions that I could ask and a million answers that I could be given, but in the end, to the dog, the past doesn't matter. What you do now matters. So we start now in this moment today with making a positive association with not only the leash and yourself as the owner, but as the, with the outside environment as well. So keep an eye on what the triggers are. When does your puppy get reactive? When does she get reactive? Is it because a vehicle drives by really quickly? Is it because there's a squirrel and there's that prey drive, or there's frustration? Is it because there's another dog or another human nearby, or anywhere in the vicinity that she sees? Keep an eye on when she becomes triggered and wants to go after you and the leash. And what kind of reactivity is it? Is it really, barking and lunging, or is it really just chewing on the leash and going after the leash or trying to play? A lot of times, young energetic dogs can be very easily frustrated if they can't, get to where they want to go, or they can't continue on the walk. I know one dog in particular named Diva. She's, I wouldn't call her a diva, but she can be a little bit, but she's a very sweet dog. She looks like a Rhodesian Ridgeback, but she's not. I think she's, a pity. There might be Malinois in there, Belgian Malinois in there. So really high energy dog. She's like maybe a year old, or just over that. And when we go on a walk, she gets excited and she starts to, after a while, go after the leash. And she tries to pull on it and play tug, and she wants to go and she wants to play. And so whenever she goes for the leash, she goes for my hand because my hand's holding the leash. So I just drop the leash and I step on it and I let her, she can tug at it. And as soon as she's calm, then we can move forward. If she goes to tug on it again and chew on it, then I just stand on the leash and we just stand there. And as soon as she's calm, we can move forward. So there's that. But she's also doing that out of frustration because she doesn't want the walk to end. Even if we've gone for 2 or 3 miles, she doesn't want that walk to end. So that would be an instance where if she's, in that moment, she's excited, she doesn't want the walk to end, a little bit of frustration. If the dog was reactive, I wouldn't be doing that. I would not hold them in the environment where they're going to continue to be reactive, even if they're taking it out on me. So without necessarily knowing the situation in which this Rottweiler puppy becomes reactive, I would say you really need to be super vigilant of what the triggers are. If it is that she's just frustrated and she doesn't want to go home, or she wants to go in a direction that you don't want to go in, you go in the opposite direction, is that where that comes from? And she starts, lunging at you and trying to, bite at clothes or bite at the leash and whatnot. That sounds like a pretty typical young dog behavior, that they're just frustrated. So you can work on having a tug toy for her to play with instead of the leash, or you can work on just having self-control, just like I do with Diva. Trust me, she gets plenty of exercise, lots of attention, and she's young. She likes to play with the leash. So then you can start building, showing the dog that the leash is not something to chew on. They can have control with that, where they can ignore the leash and anything moving around. But if it's fear-based, then we want to be aware of what the stressors are, or the triggers, and then we can work on desensitizing your puppy to that. Okay, so say there's a dog that's 50 feet from yours, and say your puppy is okay with that dog. Start giving her really high value rewards. Let her look at the dog. You can give her a reward then, or you can have her look at the dog and wait for her to look at you or look away from the dog, reward then, or you can make a kissy noise and have her make direct eye contact with you. For me, it depends on the situation about how much I'm going to ask for from this dog as far as behavior. So if I have a dog that's really reactive, then I'm just going to let them look at the dog and then reward for that. And then I can, after a few repetitions of that, I can wait for them to look at me, and then I can reward. And then after a few more repetitions of that, then I can make a kissy noise or kind of expect them to look at me, or ask them to look at me and give me more behavior. And then after that, after doing that for a little while, when the dog shows they're more comfortable in the presence of this other animal at this distance that obviously they're under threshold, then I can start asking for more behavior. So start that with your puppy. See, the number one thing is going to be, okay, what are her triggers? What triggers her to start reacting and lunging and going nuts at me? And what is the behavior? Is she chewing on the leash? Is she going at your hands? Is she barking and backing into you? Is she leaning into your body? Those signs, aside from the leash biting, in my opinion, would be more anxiety induced. Biting the leash, again, can be frustration. Is she trying to tug with the leash? That to me sounds like more play, more frustration. It's like, Mom, I'm bored, let's go do something. Does she do it only when there's humans nearby, when there's a bicycle nearby, when there's dogs nearby? Are the dogs on leash, off leash, running? A lot of fast movements can set your dog off, either to want to play or to be reactive and fearful. So work on a number of different environments with your dog. See where her threshold is within these issues. If there's people nearby that she seems excited about, even if she wants to go play, stop below her threshold, reinforce her for that, for being able to be calm, and then work your way up to where you can walk by those people, and she's able to focus on you and ignore those people. Same with other dogs. And a point to that I like to add is, when you're trying to desensitize your dog to a trigger, I try not to teach the dog to completely ignore the trigger. So I don't hold a treat in front of their nose the entire time the trigger is coming up and leaving. I might do that at first if we're in tight quarters, and it could be a little bit dangerous, and I don't want the dog to be set off. But over time, I do like to allow the dog to look at the trigger, look at me, reward, look at the trigger again, look at me, reward, so on and so forth. And then over time, they can look at it as it comes up, it goes by, and then they get a reward. If you have a dog that is so focused on whatever you're giving them, the food that you're giving them, as that trigger moves by, it can be startling to them. They may forget it's even there or not even know it's there, and then it pops up, and then wow, and then it's like 10 times worse. Trust me, that's happened a lot. So I've learned from that. So try to learn, listen to your dog, see what you're doing. The main points to walk away from this, I know I talk a lot. The main points to walk away from this are make sure your dog has no tension on the leash. If you can, you make sure she's just standing there with no tension on the leash. There's nice looseness, so that way your dog's not going into opposition reflex. There's not additional stress on her. Make sure she's below threshold, so she's calm. She can stand there calm on a leash. She can look at you. You can ask for a sit and she's able to sit if she understands that behavior. And you're able to get her attention. She can look at the trigger, and then she also thinks to look back at you, and you can get her attention and reward. And do that in a number of different situations that you can keep an eye on once you figure out what her triggers are. And then you can slowly decrease the distance, just like with Jrod here. You can slowly decrease the distance between you and the stressor. So I hope that helps. I know I talk a lot. There's a lot of information I try to get out of, 10 plus, 11 years of working with my own Shiba and just reading stuff, and 7.5 years professionally teaching with people. So there's a lot of information that I give out all at once, but thankfully this is in a recorded format. So if you miss anything, feel free to go back and, listen again. I'll try to put the time stamps of for each person, for Jrod, for your question, so that way you can just listen to your question, and Bruce, you can listen to your question, your answer, so you don't have to go listening through all this blabbing that I'm doing. But I hope it helps. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out. If you would like me to do a video example for you, I can, to show you what I mean. I'm a visual learner, so if you are too, then I totally understand that. I'll try to do that. I'll use my Shiba, and we'll just go standing in different areas, and I'll show you what I mean about threshold. As soon as they see something, they can look at you. My Shiba could always use some extra reinforcement. Even at 11 years old, your dog is still able to learn. It might just take a little bit longer. So again, thank you so much for these questions. If you have any more, keep them coming. Happy to answer them. Might just take me a couple days to get to them, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and next time I will be going over for Cindy, who's asking for me to do a video on the Cypress Arrow Kennel Tina Frey situation. I will be sure to do that in the next upcoming video. So thank you so much, and until next time, stay positive.